rat. At the far edge of a small town was a stinky garbage dump. Here many rats lived, one of which was a rat named Angus. Angus was just your ordinary-looking gray rat. He had beady black eyes, his nose was pink, as were his ears, paws, and tail, and like most rats, he had big yellow teeth. Angus and his fellow rats ate well from the piles and piles of garbage dumped here. Often, Angus would explore around the dump. One day, he was lucky enough to find a small red rubber ball. It was bouncy, and he liked to chase it. Another thing he found was an old cotton mattress. Looking it over, he soon discovered that it had a hole in it, which was a perfect fit for him to crawl into. It was very cozy, comfortable, and warm when it was cold outside. One cold wintry day, after Angus had stuffed himself with cheese and 2 large meatballs, he felt very sleepy and decided to take a nap. Walking over to his mattress, he crawled into its hole and fell fast asleep. He slept so soundly that he didn't hear an old red pickup truck drive up and stop on the dirt road near the mattress. And he didn't hear the voices of 2 men, one old and one younger, as they walked over to it. "Hey, Dad, here's something you might be able to sell at your next garage sale," said the younger man. The old man looked the mattress over. "I see it has a hole in it, Jim, but I think I can still sell it. Let's load it up." So the 2 men put the mattress in the bed of the pickup along with several other items they had picked up and drove away down the dirt road to the main highway. As they were driving back to their place, Angus suddenly woke up. Poking his head out of the hole in the mattress, he saw that he was moving far away from the dump. Frightened and confused, he wanted to jump out, but the truck was moving too fast. They drove past groups of trees, open fields, and then houses on both sides of the highway. Finally, the driver turned into a driveway and stopped in front of a wooden garage connected to a rather large 1-story house. The 2 men jumped out of the truck when the large garage door opened and began unloading their stuff from the dump into the garage. Angus hid as deep as he could in the mattress. At last, the men picked up the mattress and stood it up against one of the walls of the garage. "Well, see you later," said Jim to his father. "Yep, thanks for your help," said his dad. After Jim left, the garage door clanged shut and the old man walked over to a wooden door. Opening it, he walked into his house, shutting the door behind him. When the garage grew quiet and Angus was sure it was safe, he jumped out of his hole onto the cement floor, which smelled of oil and gasoline. He sniffed here and there and, using his long whiskers, explored around the garage. Suddenly, the wooden door opened. At once, Angus scurried under the car in the garage and peeked out around one of its front tires. The old man flipped on the light switch. He walked over to his workbench and picked up a hammer and some nails, and then went back into his house, not quite shutting the door behind him all the way. Angus could see the small sliver of light coming from the house, and he grew curious. Silently, he crept to the door and squeezed his body through the opening. Inside, he found it was warm and full of good smells. Then he explored around the house, going from room to room. In one of the larger rooms was another door. At the bottom of the door was a smaller door. Walking over to it, he nosed it and found that it moved. Suddenly, a gruff voice behind him said, "Are you a mouse? A big mouse?" Startled, Angus whirled around and came face to face with a fat brown dog who began sniffing him. "What? No, I'm not a mouse," he said, backing up. "Well, what are you then?" asked the dog. "You look like a mouse." Angus took a big breath. "I'm a rat," he said. "Oh," said the dog, walking slowly over to the small door, pushing it open with his head, and with a small jump forward disappeared. "Hey, where did he go?" thought Angus. Then he turned and nosed the door again. With his head, he pushed it open and jumped through to the other side, which was the backyard. "Wow, this is awesome," he exclaimed. lots of places to hide. The dog was over by the wooden fence, looked up and saw the rat. "Oh, it's you," he said. "I see you figured out how to get outside." "Yes, I did," said Angus. Suddenly the dog began barking and jumping at the fence. On the top of the fence was a reddish-brown squirrel running along its top edge. Seeing how excited the dog was, she stopped and looked down at him. "Hi, Lester, having fun trying to catch me?" "You never will, of course." Just then, the wildest, meanest-looking cat ever jumped up on top of the other end of the fence. Spotting the squirrel, he silently crept toward her. When he was close enough, he pounced, just barely missing the startled squirrel, who managed at the last second to jump on the lowest branch of a nearby walnut tree. And then, in a total panic, quickly scampered up the tree to one of its top branches. When she knew she was safe, she turned and looked down. "Ha ha, Feeny, you'll never catch me, you stupid cat," she teased. "That's right, Feeny," said Lester. "Sassy is just too smart and quick for us." Feeny's blue eyes narrowed and his tail swished back and forth. "She's a smarty pants," he said angrily, "and I'm going to catch her one of these days." "We'll see," said Lester. Meanwhile, Angus peeked out from behind a pile of wood. He was frightened and was hoping to make it to safety before he was spotted. But it was too late. Feeny saw him and jumped down from the fence. Licking his lips, he slowly crept toward him. Lester looked up and yelled, "Run, rat, run! Run to the door!" Angus made a dash for the door, but right before he reached it, the cat pounced and landed with his two front paws on his long tail, holding it tight in his claws. Let me go, Angus cried. "No way," sneered the cat, and he licked his lips again. And that is the end of that.
Kind of get back into it. Okay, so I have an excerpt here from my third book, which is Garnassian Pirates, the Third Stone Island Sea Story. And this little excerpt comes from chapter 11. The chapter is called News from Across the Sea. This is kind of in the middle of it. But basically our main characters and that are waiting at the dock for a vessel to arrive. The expected vessel, a medium-sized brig, was well down the channel and beginning to shorten sail, preparing to turn and come alongside the quay. Even with 3 recently arrived vessels there was plenty of room for the newcomer. The port facilities were extensive, remnants of an ancient civilization that had once called the island home. As clearing and restoration continued, more and more dock space was being discovered. With the deep waters of the harbor, all but the largest ships could approach and tie up rather than anchoring out. When the brig was alongside, lines were passed and the vessel was secured. Once a brow had been established, Malley went aboard. It was his duty to ascertain what cargo ships carried, learn if there were any settlers on board for the island, and to make final determination of the health of the crew and passengers. While those questions were answered when a vessel passed the batteries at the harbor entrance, it was prudent for the health and safety of all to ask once again. The brig carried a small amount of cargo for the island. Already hands were rigging stay tackles to sway it out of the hold and onto the quay. Pierce watched the brig deck in eager anticipation while he observed the crew make ready to offload the cargo. A familiar figure appeared, stout, barrel-chested, on shorter than usual but muscular legs. The figure turned to the brig's captain and said something which Pierce believed to be "thank you." Then the figure turned and hurried down the ground. A smile brightened the individual's dark face and grew broader until it lit up the quayside. As the doctor stepped onto solid ground, he was besieged by old friends desiring to shake his hand, pat him on the back, and even embrace him enthusiastically. Friends, he said when he had a chance to speak, it's good to be among you again. I'm thrilled to find Edward and Isaac here as well. It's a welcome surprise. As it is for me, Doctor, said Pierce, pumping the medical man's arm again. But allow me to introduce Isabel Carter, Sharon Hotchkiss, and my own dear Evangeline. As well, I present Captain Andre Cartier and Lieutenant Alan Small of the Barkentine Rose Marie, flying forward of your own vessel. Dr. Robertson beamed, offered the usual greetings involved in meeting someone new. He gallantly kissed the lady's fingers and shook hands with the men. Delighted to meet all of you, he said. And he turned to Vera. I understand you've changed your name. Why, yes, we had hoped you would be here for the ceremony. Alas, I was in the thick of things with the Unity Congress. It's always an uphill battle to get them to agree on anything. However, it's easier than trying to convince the Joint Council to do anything. We were attempting to get them to take action regarding the recent rash of piracy. An air of a solemn air washed over the group. Perhaps I spoke too freely. I know Mr. Smythe is not here, and I see worry in your faces, Evangeline, if I may, Vera. Evangeline said, it's no secret he's not here, so do not apologize for mentioning it. She's right, you know, petted Vera. But let us get you up to Government House and see you comfortably settled. We can talk later. I would agree to that.
It's called I Don't Remember Winter. I don't remember winter with its gray, slushy sullenness, because the ground is ablaze with green and joy and flower petals, startlingly white. I don't remember winter or sad men holding panhandling signs that make me cringe with guilt and shame, because there are beautiful shops that wave their open doors and beckon to me. I forget poverty as I wander through colorful aisles far beyond my means. I don't remember winter, for I've forgotten my broken heart that no longer has the power to devour my beauty. And I will wash away my sadness in the cool waters of all the lakes surrounding me.
This is a reading from a book that was published just about a year ago. The book is called The Lifer and the Lawyer, and it's about my 43-year relationship with a man who was sentenced to life in prison, and I represented him just shortly after I graduated from law school in the late 1970s. It starts with a quote from Martha Stewart. The last place I would ever want to go was prison. I listened to the long and winding road, and here comes the sun, as I drove south from Spokane on a broad highway that ran straight and flat through the eastern Washington desert. When you drive the same road year after year, lost in thought, listening to the Beatles, and the landscape is unchanging, the sagebrush, the road signs, the distant hills, it is possible to forget exactly where you are in the chronology of your life. It could have been 1977 or 1997. It was, in fact, October 2017, and I was white-haired, a retired old law professor, absorbed in the enduring melodies and lyrics of my expectant youth. I was headed to the Coyote Ridge Correctional Center to visit Michael. He had a timeless quality too, like the Beatles, but his came from being vanished, unseen, and ghostly, an icon who represents the darkness we wish to keep at bay. He had achieved the timelessness that comes from being a lifer. I drove distracted and pensive, poking around in dormant memories, possessed by the gloom that seemed always to attend my visits to a state prison. Listening to John Lennon's plaintive voice did not help. It evoked sad thoughts of his death in 1980 and steered me back to the fact that Michael had already been locked up for almost 3 years when Lennon died. I switched to an iPhone collection featuring Marvin Gaye. Don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me, so you can see what's going on. It seemed more fitting. I knew I would feel hollow and small when I entered the prison. Correctional officers would lock the doors behind me, and there would be friction when I rubbed against their authority. I would be in the presence of sad men whose suffering might last to the end of their days. Connell has a forlorn, almost eerie feel. It might be just another dusty and forgettable small town, a place to stop for gas or coffee before moving on. But the Coyote Ridge prison inhabits the quiet community like a collection of dead souls haunts a cemetery. I exited the freeway and found the Circle K convenience store on Connell's Main Street near the center of town. A few pickup trucks were parked out front, belonging to farmers and cowboys, I supposed. An attractive young Hispanic woman leaned over the cash register, chatting quietly in Spanish with another young woman who did not appear to be a customer. I waited and felt conspicuous in my coat and tie, wondering why, after all these years, I still needed to dress like a lawyer. The cashier glanced at me, straightened, and forced a smile. Her confidant, alerted to my presence, politely moved aside so I could pay for my coffee. Hi, ladies. How is life in beautiful downtown Connell this morning? I inquired. It was a snarky question, but one that acknowledged the common understanding that, whatever might be said about Connell, it did not have a beautiful downtown. The cashier was forgiving. Oh, it could be worse. We could be in prison, she grinned. Come on, the prison's not so bad, the other woman said. I know lots of people who work there. Of course, they get to leave after work. Well, that's where I'm headed, I offered, as though my destination was some big mystery. Keep your head down, dude, and your butt to the wall, the cashier kidded. She gave me change and returned to gossiping with her companion. I carried the steaming cup to my car and sat, engine off, uneasy and inert. The rich Kona aroma enveloped me, and I inhaled deeply, closed my eyes, found and focused on a cosmically green color in the middle of my mind, a color that substituted for a mantra when I didn't have time for a proper meditation. I was preparing for Michael and the unfathomable truth that he had spent the last 40 years in prison. My short coffee break and meditation morphed into an unruly rumination. A part of me was weightless, floating, the untethered imagination of a retiree who could now forsake his former world, or the world in general, maybe travel, or search for God, or improve his slice-prone golf game, or sit at the seashore with a pile of books and a big bouncing labradoodle. Another part of me was heavy and weary, beleaguered with memories of things done and left undone, the residue of the past. There it was, my life, compressed but expansive, all that time, all that had happened, all that it meant, and yet how brief and dreamlike and vaporous. I sipped coffee in a Circle K parking lot in this lonely little town, overwhelmed by memories pruned and distorted by time. I finally focused on a few fragments I knew to be true. The fading image of a young lawyer who believed the arc of history really did bend towards justice, and the image of another young man, a black man in chains, a lost soul, condemned to die behind bars.
Hello. My book is Freedom Seeking. It's a workbook. And I have some definitions in it also in some areas. Medications. Your health is very, very important to those who love you personally. Your health is also important to me and to society. To those who love you, such as your family and friends, it's important because they know you. I care about your health because it's important for people to know themselves. My goal is to help people with and without disabilities be as independent as possible. If medication can help, why avoid it? It's supposed to make you healthy as you can be. Your health is important to society because when people are healthy, the taxpayer in society pay less money, supposedly. Pay less money for health care. When people are unhealthy or sick, society pays more in taxes for health care. A few questions to ask your doctor if you don't know the answer is, and if you do know, write it down. And then you don't have to ask your doctor. How does each medicine, how's it supposed to work to help me? Is each one of the medicines doing what it's supposed to be doing? If yes, how? If not, why? Or do you not know? How does the medicine you take benefit you? What are the side effects and risks for each medicine you're taking? If you are having side effects that you are not willing to live with, or the side effects to the medicine are worse than the reason you are taking the med, talk to your doctor to see if there's another one available. If he or she has any other ideas of how to manage your medical mental health problem, other than prescription medication, what is it? What are other ways you can think of to manage your medicine and mental health along with medicine? Do you know what could happen to you if you do not take your medicine? Ask if you don't know. If you don't want to take the medicine, will you eat healthy, take vitamins, good counseling, exercise often, avoid foods that could increase the reason for taking your medicine? The following questions tell others what you want to be able to do yourself. And these include things like taking your own medication, and then what kind of things do you need to be able to do that? Do you need a med minder? I write it long, but you guys are smarter than the people I actually think I wrote this for. So I'll spare you the details, but this is a workbook. And it's for anybody, even if you know the answers. If you need a decision maker later in life, and I've had this happen, I've been in a couple car accidents, I had brain surgery, and when I had the brain surgery, I didn't know anything. I didn't know. Anyways, it was a good thing I had a mental health advance directive because it showed that my husband had the right to speak on my behalf. And if he didn't, I would have had somebody else. So this is kind of like a form of preliminary to be able to write out an advance directive, mental health advance directive, that kind of stuff. So thank you for listening.
was, while crossing paths we did not meet till 7 seasons after, and that'll be self-explanatory by the end of the story. There I stood in the hot sun on Franklin Avenue, gazing at a majestic mansion that predated any of the surrounding homes. Overlooking it, high atop the hill and back, was the sprawling Yamashiro Hotel, a long-standing Hollywood landmark. Observing this magnificent house before me, I was enthralled, totally mesmerized by the artistic integrated design elements. It had a sunroof, ornate windows, spacious third-floor attic, and cone-like turrets rising up along the tall mansard roof. Though neglected over time, she still had the opulent look of elegant early 1900s homes, built with grand features of great extent. An enclosed porch was framed by 3 tall, curved entryways. A short, wide stairway led to a landing, and onto a longer set of stairs descending down the lawn, curving gracefully wider toward the sidewalk. Oh, how I wished I could see the many rooms inside. Just looking at this beautiful structure, I felt elated, though extremely sad too, for the magnificent house was in dire need of upkeep. What was once a large expanse of lawn on either side was now dry grass. To the right, a small, faded, slightly skewed sign read, "Rooms for rent." Perhaps for unknown reasons, the owner could not care for the place, or was milking it dry. I hoped its fate wouldn't be the wrecking ball. It was too grand for that. Little did I know that less than 2 years later, I'd meet one of the tenants who resided there. After graduation from the Pasadena Playhouse, my roommate Jenny and I had moved to Hollywood on Orchid Avenue, 1 block east from this mansion and a block west of Highland, around the corner of an all-white, 3-story apartment building, down to the Amor Arms apartments. From our 11th floor window, we could see below us 3 small stucco homes next door, and beyond them to a coffee shop on the busy corner of Highland and Hollywood Boulevard. To our right, the peaks of the famous Grauman's Chinese Theater were visible. In fact, I worked at Grauman's for a few weeks, which was easy to get to. I simply walked past the houses and cut the corner by slipping through the back corridor of Grauman's. Today, the coffee shop is long gone, plus the small residential houses next door. The enormous Dolby Theater complex takes up that entire space next to the Amor Arms. All you can see from there now is the high, wide backside wall of the Dolby where the Academy Awards take place. Little did I know then, after living in other dwelling places and experiencing life-altering ventures, including a short stint as a dancer in Las Vegas showrooms, I'd eventually live near there again. This time on the very corner of Franklin and Orchid, and that I'm in that impressive white apartment building with a new spouse, who had once lived in the wondrous mansion I could now see across the street from the corner of my 3rd-floor living room window. A year after that, the ornate manor was rescued from a demolition. Magician Walt Larson envisioned earlier of having a special club for meetings. At great expense, his son Milt had the exquisite home remodeled into the now famous Magic Castle. Sadly, the interior was totally gutted and changed. The front was greatly altered to accommodate an imposing wide driveway, curving up and around to a hidden entrance. With lush landscaping and special lighting effects, the newer round-walled exterior is striking. Ornate street lamps and artifacts salvaged from other bygone homes add to its charm. It is now a showplace, a wondrous private club for magicians, impressive to behold. Though rescued and on the National Historical Register, the structure is not the same, similar yet different. The exterior walls and turrets remain, giving it its castle look. What it gained in a modern, elegant facelift, leaving only part of the original design, it lost a bit of its previous century-old charm.